when I first went self-employed, as in when I first became...
Whatever.
Yeah. When I first became an entrepreneur, or whatever you want to call me, I'm a bloody content creator. When I make videos in my spare bedroom for a living, I was paranoid that the wheels were going to fall off. And I just sat on cash, and I can really empathize with that. And especially if you're not a high earner, you talk about gig workers, people who are doing Uber Eats, they might think, or just Ubers in general, if I have a bad day, I've got no money, right? So I can't just fire it away.
Yeah.
They need to make the pensions for those people no-brainers, because for the employed, it's a no-brainer. Get the match contribution. For me, it's a no-brainer. Get the money out of the limited company without being rinsed on tax. For them, it doesn't seem like a no-brainer.
One of the ideas that's been doing the rounds, and we have to credit your friends at Nest for coming up with this in the first place, is this idea of a sidecar account, that this would run alongside a workplace pension. So
10% fee. That's to be like, we'll run it 10% fee. Lend us $1 billion to set it up.
So there's been talk about, there's legislation's been passed to change the auto-enrollment rules, to reduce the age to 18, to get rid of that £6,000 disregard we talked about earlier on. But the argument is, well, look, if we do that, let's not hit because that then means an increase in contributions, and that might unsettles some people. Oh, hang on, the amount I pay into my pension has suddenly gone up, and I could only just about afford well, what we could do is the increased amount that you're now been taken out of your pay to go into your pension, we could not pay it into a pension. We could pay it into a sidecar account, which is a cash account that would sit alongside your pension, and we're just going to make it easy for you to build up a household financial reserve of cash. For millions of people, that currently doesn't exist. Millions of people have very little in the way of spare cash in the bank to cover unexpected eventualities. So just helping them to do that and get to the point where you've got hundreds or maybe low thousands of pounds as a reserve account to draw on, then come back to our conversation about risk, then makes it easier for you to take more risk or to lock money away in a pension, or maybe boost the amount you're putting into a pension because you've got that.
An auto-enrolled emergency fund.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the one of the concerns is, well, yeah, but we could help people do that and they'll just keep taking the money out. Yes, they might, but not everybody will. Experience suggests that quite a lot of people would go, oh, thank you. That's actually quite handy for me. You've found a way to help me build up a cash reserve that I wasn't quite getting around to doing myself. Because like T, I keep going, no, I'll do it next quarter. And so
holiday time.
Yeah.
How nanny state do you think we should get with these kind of things?
Well, we have a Labour government. They're kind of more inclined to being a nanny state. Look, I think auto-enrollment was a good thing. It repaired a failure of the pension system that because it was no longer had automatic membership, participation rates were collapsing. We weren't saving enough for retirement. Auto-enrollment has turned that around. So I'm kind of okay with that bit of nanny state. I think probably I'd argue the same is true around the sidecar account, that with the best will in the world, a lot of people don't have that household financial resilience, and that is critical to enabling them to be more entrepreneurial, to take more risk. You take risk if you're doing it from a solid foundation. If you're in a precarious situation, it's really hard to take risks. So if a bit of nanny statism, a bit of nudging helps people build those foundations, I'm personally okay with that.
Yeah, I do agree that one of the things that I say is that whilst investing didn't make me rich, what it did allow me to do was jump when the opportunity came in terms of the YouTube channel, and it allowed me to turn my back on my career. Whereas, because I was earning good money, there's a lot of people out there that are just so on the line, even though they're earning 100 grand a year, they're thinking, I can't leave this job because how am I going to feed the kids and pay my mortgage?
If it goes wrong for a couple of months, I'm in trouble.
I'm 8 weeks from bankruptcy. The stat of like most people, if I said to you, if you didn't get paid for 2 months, would you survive? The answer is no, without going into extreme debt. So I do think, it's a nice idea that if we force everyone to have an emergency fund, maybe people would start being more entrepreneurial, and maybe there's some growth there to be had. But it would need to come on top of the pension contributions, because otherwise the people just rinsing it constantly would just have a cash savings account and never save for pension. So would you be saying 8% auto-enrollment plus a 2%?
So that was the logic, is we need to do this increase to auto-enrollment, because there's a general consensus that the 8% probably isn't enough for most people. So if we're going to make the increase to the contributions, could we do it by initially funneling some money into a sidecar account and then maybe redirecting it into a pension subsequently? The stuff that could be done there. I talked earlier on about how there's that bunch of people in the kind of mid to high income brackets who are probably the most undersaved at the moment in terms of retirement provision. So another thought process is, do we start modifying the auto enrollment amounts and say, well, people on 20 grand a year, given that generous state pension relative to their pre-retirement income, they're mostly okay. We don't need to get them to save anymore, and it would probably just damage their standard of living today if we started taking more money out of their pay packet. So we'll leave them where they are. Those people on 50, 60 grand a year, we need to get them to put quite a lot more in. Let's get them up to 12%. People on over 100 grand a year, well, they're a different proposition again. So maybe one direction we go in the future is we actually start having more than one auto-enrollment rate. And part of that could involve channeling money into the cash accounts as well. There's a lot of directions we could go in with all of this.
What I would like to know is your opinion on just the conversation around pensions. Where should that go? Like, we seem to be making all these decisions for people in the background and then not explaining them to them.
Yeah, so what worries me, and so the virtue of auto enrollment is it was just done. It was defaults all the way. Let's not worry people's heads about it. And then people kind of go, oh, I'm in a pension now. That's great. Thanks for that. Right. But they're not thinking about it. So that's a problem, because we have to get to the point where people are more engaged with this and are thinking about it. And then I think when you take a step back, we talked earlier on about the state pension. What are we trying to achieve here? What does good look like in terms of the level of state provision, the level of risk exposure from the state to longevity? If the population ends up living longer than expected, how much of that burden needs to be carried by the taxpayers of tomorrow? To what extent should we be getting people to make their own retirement savings provision and owning those retirement savings provisions and thinking about what money they're putting aside? And so if you're diligent and you save well and you invest well and you prosper, well, you'll be rewarded for that. As opposed to the Torsten Bell mindset of we just want to punish wealth accumulation. So I don't feel like we're having that big picture conversation around what does a stable structure for the state pension look like over the next 20, 30, 40 years that gives people that confidence to save for retirement.
This was a clip from our episode with pensions guru and general legend Tom McPhail. To watch the full episode, click right here.